Well, Cenk, as you mentioned, the latest batch of Epstein files contain passages so damaging to President Donald Trump that his Department of Justice came out to call them fake news. And we'll get into some of these really horrific details. But what do you make, Cenk, before we get into that, of this spin attempt by the DOJ to try to dissuade people from giving any of these files any weight?
Hello, folks, and welcome back. Buckle up. We're diving headfirst into the latest batch of Epstein files. And let me tell you, it's a wild ride. Every time these documents drop, it's like a political earthquake, sending sound waves through Washington and beyond. The mainstream media, of course, is already spinning faster than a top, trying to tell us what to think. But not here. We're going to cut through the noise, look at the facts, and call out the absurdity we're about to see. But when it comes to powerful people and dark secrets, you know there's always more to the story than meets the eye. Let's get into it.
Yeah, there's one letter in there that I'm pretty much positive is fake, and so we'll share that with you guys too. And so I'm worried that that's going to discredit the rest. No, make a decision on each individual piece of evidence by itself. The other parts are very damning. So let's analyze it one by one and see what's real and what isn't.
Yeah. First, a warning to the viewer. Some of the material we're going to cover is very graphic and very disturbing. This morning, like we said, the DOJ released almost 30,000 new Epstein files. The department also issued a statement that read, "Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had any shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already."
Did you catch that, folks? The Department of Justice, in all its wisdom, decided to preemptively dismiss these claims as unfounded and false before we even had a chance to properly digest them. And the kicker? They explicitly state these claims were submitted to the FBI before the 2020 election. Oh, really? What a convenient little detail to drop in there, almost as if suggested that any negative information about a certain former president is inherently political and therefore automatically false. It's like walking into a courtroom and the judge declares the defendant innocent before the jury even hears a single piece of evidence, just because the accuser once voted for the wrong party. This isn't about transparency. It's about damage control, pure and simple. They're trying to discredit the source, not the information. It's the classic kill the messenger strategy, but in this case, the messenger is a giant pile of official documents. And the argument, if they had any shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. That's a logical falsehood so glaring it needs its own spotlight. It assumes that all credible information is immediately weaponized and that if it wasn't, it must be false. Newsflash, people. Investigations take time, and powerful people have powerful lawyers. Sometimes information is suppressed, ignored, or simply takes years to surface. To suggest that because something wasn't used in a previous political battle, it's automatically untrue is frankly insulting to anyone with an ounce of critical thinking. It's a shred of evidence that needs to be said, but people with logical brains can really understand it. It's a shield made of straw, and it falls apart the moment you poke it.
Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, the DOJ is releasing these documents with the legally required protections for Epstein's victims. Now, let's dive into those untrue and sensationalist claims as they describe them. We'll start with a letter that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly wrote to Larry Nasser. And if you aren't familiar or don't remember Larry Nasser, he's the former team doctor of the U.S. women's national gymnastics team. He was charged with sexually abusing over 250 young women and girls. Epstein seemingly wrote the letter when he was in jail in 2019. It reads, in part, "As you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck. We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies at the hope they'd reach their full potential. Our president shares our love of young, nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, He loved to grab snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system. The Department of Justice has disputed the authenticity of that letter, posting on Twitter today. The Department of Justice is currently looking into the validity of this alleged letter from Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Nassar, and we will follow up as soon as possible. In the meantime, 3 facts stand out. The postmark on the envelope is Virginia, not New York, where Jeffrey Epstein was jailed at the time. The return address listed the wrong jail where Epstein was held and did not include his inmate number, which is required for outgoing mail. The envelope was processed 3 days after Epstein's death. Later today, the DOJ announced they had officially determined the letter was fake. For what it's worth, others like Dropsite News' Ryan Grimm have reached the same opinion. Here's another excerpt from the Epstein files. It has to do with a tipster who shared a chilling story about Trump. The details came from an FBI document which is dated October 2020. It is difficult to decipher because it is heavily redacted, but from what we can gather, in 1999, the tipster was telling a woman about his experience meeting Donald Trump as a limo driver. In response to that story, the woman told the tipster that Trump raped her. Here are some excerpts from that FBI document. During Redacted's time as a driver, he had met Donald Trump. Redacted noted he picked up the president in 1995 and took him to the DFW airport. Redacted noted Trump continuously stated the name Jeffrey while on the phone and made references to abusing some girl. Now, this part is harder to parse because both the tipster and the woman's name are redacted. As Redacted talked about his time meeting Donald Trump, Redacted demeanor went stone cold as Redacted stated, "He raped me." Redacted said, "What?" As Redacted replied, "Donald J. Trump had raped her along with Jeffrey Epstein." Redacted noted some girl with a funny name took me into a fancy hotel or building. That's how it happened. Redacted advised to call the police regarding the incident. As Redacted stated, "I can't. They will kill me." 1 day later, the woman told the tipster that she changed her mind and told the police about what happened to her. Sometime later, the tipster found out that that woman was dead and her death was ruled a suicide. Redacted reached out to Redacted, stating was dead, and noted she was found with her head, quote, blown off in Kiefer, Oklahoma. Officers on the scene and Redacted stated there was no way it was a suicide. Coroner stated it was a suicide. Redacted feels the murder is cover for Ghislaine. And we've got a lot more, but Jank, I want to bring you in here. Both of these might seem fishy, especially the former, but what do you make of both of these?
Okay, hold on a minute. Let's unpack this chilling account. We have an FBI document, which is heavily redacted, detailing a woman's claim that she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, then feared for her life, only to turn up dead, which was ruled a suicide, with local officers allegedly saying there was no way it was a suicide, and the coroner just shrugs and calls it a suicide? This isn't just fishy. This is a whole school of piranhas in a murky pond. It's the kind of story that if you were watching Netflix true crime documentary, you'd be yelling at the screen saying, "Don't go in there alone," or "Check the real evidence." The idea that someone so terrified of political and powerful individuals end up committing suicide with their head blown off is a ridiculous story straight out of a mob movie, not a legitimate investigation outcome, especially when the initial responders are skeptical. This is where our system often fails us. When powerful names are involved, the standard of investigations seems to bend and warp. It's not about whether you like or dislike Trump. It's about whether justice is applied equally, across a border. If this were John Doe from down the street, the two powerful, wealthy individuals were accused, and then the accuser dies under suspicious circumstances, you can bet your bottom dollar there would be a full-blown, no-holds-barred investigation. But when it's big names, suddenly the suicide narrative becomes gospel, even when it defies common sense and logic. It's a pattern we've seen before, isn't it? People connected to these dark circles meet untimely ends, and the official story is always a little too neat, a little too inconvenient, or I should say convenient. It makes you wonder if the local cops on the scene had their doubts. Why weren't those doubts pursued with full force of the law? Why does it feel like the truth often gets buried deeper than the victims themselves when the stakes are this high? This isn't just a red flag. It's a giant waving crimson banner screaming for proper scrutiny.
Yeah, no, I have very different opinions on those two things. So the first letter, the minute I read it, I thought this is BS. So, and in fact, I don't want that letter disregarded. I want it tracked because whoever sent that letter, it might be a rando, right? Or it might be someone who actually did the killing of Jeffrey Epstein. Why? Because there's a million things wrong with that letter. First of all, nothing's misspelled. Jeffrey Epstein couldn't spell if his life depended on it. Okay, and so that's just like tiny little clue number one. Number two, really, Epstein, one of the worst child abusers, is talking to Larry Nasser, the other super terrible child abuser, and they say, "But Trump is worse than us." Man, that is awfully convenient, right? And then the third thing on top of that is. Um, Oh, I am going to take the shortcut home, as you will soon find out. I am committing suicide. It is definitely suicide. Is it, brother? Is it? So that's what I was thinking even before we found out. Oh, it was mailed 3 days after he died, and or processed at least 3 days after he died, and from the wrong place to the wrong place, et cetera, et cetera. So that is, it has at least a 99% chance of being fake. But who faked it and why did they insist? Remember, I'm taking a shortcut home, meaning suicide. It felt a little like Tyler Robinson's engraved bullets. Remember, I am doing this because I am a leftist and I do not like those fascist right wingers. Yeah, maybe. And remember, it was just me and no one else. He writes that in all the text. Maybe, okay. But that letter is fake 8 ways to Sunday. All right. So number two, now you get to the rape charges and the lady who lost her life. Well, look, I have no reason to believe that's fake, and I have no reason to believe it's real. Well, I have a reason to believe it's real. It's in the files, right? On the other hand, so is a fake letter. So I'm at I don't know, but here's what I do know. Should that be investigated? Of course. Was it already investigated? Some of the stuff goes back to 1995. If it wasn't investigated, then I become 10,000 times more curious. If there's a witness saying this lady was raped by two powerful people, it doesn't matter what their names are. Could have been Bill Clinton and Larry Summers. I don't care, right? But two very powerful and wealthy people raped this girl, and then all of a sudden she blows her head off after she was worried they were going to kill her. Brother, you better look into that in a big way before you dismiss it as, I bet that's crazy, nothing to see. Is it true that the local cops thought there's no way it's a suicide? I mean, look, a lot of the Epstein victims wound up committing suicide, including Epstein, right? Giuffre, they say Virginia Giuffre committed suicide. Yeah, I know. She said she was depressed, et cetera, but that's also usually a good cover story. So, look, if it's not investigated thoroughly, then I turn around and go, that's super weird. Why wouldn't you investigate that, no matter who was involved? So, no, that one we have no reason to believe is fake. I certainly wouldn't just trust it on its face alone. Both of them require significant investigation, but the fact that if the second one was not adequately investigated, that would be another red flag.
Yeah, I'm with you on the first one. I would need to be proven otherwise, but until then, I'm just going to assume that someone who tried to send in a fake letter. Again, I don't want to credit the DOJ or anything like that, but the timing on some of these are very suspicious. It's all right in the run up to the election. It's a mess. If you look at some of the early files that were released, they're taking from everything. It wasn't just stuff that they gathered through their own intelligence gathering or their own investigation. It was just catch all, anything that could possibly relate. That's why you had an entire page by page scan of someone's book in the first batch of documents. So this, I think, for the most part, that letter is just somebody being a crank. Maybe not, but I would need to see evidence otherwise that also addresses like the the really suspicious flags about the date, where it was postmarked, that kind of stuff. On the
Yeah.
other one, we could, I mean, maybe there will be an investigation, certainly not by the DOJ, but even like local reporters in Kiefer, Oklahoma can look up and see if there was a suicide around that time. And you could find in the police records if there was something like that. That would validate that major point in that story. So I would hope that the Oklahoman or local affiliates around there would take a look at that. But until then, I would just need more evidence. We've got more that they have released, and we'll end with an email from 2020. We don't know who sent or received that email, but both have been redacted. All we know is that whoever sent the email was serving as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. Here's what they wrote. Wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported or that we were aware, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. In particular, he is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. He is listed as having traveled with, among others, and at various times, Marla Maples, his daughter Tiffany, and his son Eric. On one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump, and then 20-year-old redacted. On 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers, respectively, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. Jank, this one to me has a lot more weight and is way more damning from Trump. What do you think?
Yeah. So look, to me, did Epstein and Trump party together? Well, that's not in question. They definitely did. Did they have relationships with women in questionable ways, which I'll explain in a minute? Of course they did, right? So was it with underage girls? I don't know. We know with Epstein, we don't know with Trump. So that brings us back to the same place.
All right, this is where the rubber meets the road. For years, we've heard the narrative. Oh, Trump and Epstein, they knew each other years ago, but Trump cut them off way before any of the bad stuff came about. It was a convenient little fad, a political shield. But now, thanks to the political records, that fable is crumbling faster than a cheap cookie. Not only was Trump on Epstein's private jet, but he was on it many more times than previously reported, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. Let that sink in. This isn't just a casual acquaintance. This is repeated documented association during the very time frame when Epstein's horrific activities were allegedly at their peak, and Maxwell was deeply involved. This isn't about guilty by association. This is about a direct contradiction of a long-standing public denial. It's like someone telling you they've never been into the gym, and then you find out their name on the attendance sheet every single day for a full year. The evidence directly refutes the claim. And it's not just that he was on the plane, it's who else was on the plane. Maxwell, his own family, and other possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. This isn't just about a rich guy flying around, it's about the context of the flight. When powerful people lie about their associations, especially with someone like Epstein, it raises a huge, colossal red flag. Why the elaborate cover up if there's nothing to hide? The truth has a funny way of coming out, eventually. And these flight records are a stark reminder that even the most powerful individuals can't keep every secret buried forever. It isn't just another layer, it's a whole new floor in the house of cards.
It's possible that you go on that plane and you don't go to what they're calling Rape Island, right? It's possible you go to different places. Lots of powerful people and connected people knew Jeffrey Epstein. They didn't all do it. Okay, now, having said that, he said he wasn't on the plane, and now it turns out very likely he was on the plane many, many times. So that's another big red flag, right? So there are other things in the documents. So there's a mysterious subpoena of Mar-a-Lago and who was working for them at a time when the poaching from Mar-a-Lago might have happened by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So why is that stuff redacted? What was the subpoena about? And then you connect it to the other development that's from today, where there was a witness who said that there was a woman named Ghislaine Lisa Villeneuve. I don't know if that's a name that Ghislaine used otherwise, saying that that they were going to go to a party at Mar-a-Lago, and Ghislaine told them, "Don't. That party is just for prostitutes." So did they have parties with basically prostitutes coming in to service the older, wealthier men? Hard to know, but on the other hand, that one seems super real. Like, if you think that doesn't happen with wealthier dudes, I my experience in covering the news tells me that it does. So, guys, I wish we could tell you we know definitively on any of this stuff, but they redact so much of it, and there's some stuff in there that's just total bogeys, and it makes you wonder about the rest. So that's why it's hard to reach definitive conclusions on any of these. But I brought that up in the context of the jet because if you told me Trump and Epstein are flying around and having sex with youngish, like 20-year-old, but grown, but adults, right? Prostitutes throughout the country, the world, etc. I'd believe that in a flat second. In fact, I'd be really surprised if it didn't happen. Okay. So, and here's some evidence that it did happen. You do that with that what you will. Jordan, do you reach any conclusions from this?
On this one, I mean, this is something he's disputed, right? The whole time he's, oh, I knew him, but I cut him off. They're saying, look, not only were they close, we knew that. There's photos and videos of that proving that they were close. But I'm almost certain that he disputed ever being on that plane. And now we know not only was he on it, he was on it a lot. And I think this point where he said it was this redacted name said, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. Something that Trump has long maintained is that their friendship ended before any of this stuff was known. And the reporting, especially over the past several months, has shown no, it was maybe at its peak during that period where it was publicly known. I mean, the letters, the acknowledgement, the association extended well beyond when Trump will admit that they were friends.
And there you have it, folks. Another dive into the murky waters of the Epstein files, leaving us with more questions than answers again, and a whole lot of skepticism about official narratives again. It's clear that when it comes to powerful figures, the truth is often stranger and far more inconvenient than fiction. So tell me, what do you think? Are these just political motive smears, or is there a deeper, darker truth waiting to be uncovered? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more unfiltered analysis. We'll keep digging, and we'll keep calling it like we see it. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep asking questions.